I want to share this story with you. It just made me so sad. And not that I want to bring you down. I'm not here to bring you down. But the story it's indicative of the crazy times that we live in. It has to do with a little girl. Her name is Molly Gibson. She's just about a month old. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. She was born about a month ago. But guess how old she is? You already know, Cyrus, so I won't ask you to guess. This little baby, this newborn baby who was born a little over a month ago, she's 27 years old. And you say, what? Her embryo was frozen back in October of 1992. Here's a report from CNN. And this is part of the reason why I want that. This is an Apple video, Cyrus. This is not the story to play it with, but it's coming. So her embryo was frozen in October 1992 and stayed frozen until earlier this year when Tina and Ben Gibson of Tennessee adopted her embryo. Now, the embryo adoption is a whole other dispute. It's a whole other discussion / disagreement in the world of bioethics. And I don't think we don't have the time to sort of delve into that. But the fact is that this little child was on ice in a laboratory somewhere locked. Can you imagine the nightmare quality of this? An embryo, a child who would have been born 6, 7, 8 months later in a natural fashion, but instead her parent put her on ice, locked away in the darkness, frozen for 27 years. And then this couple, Tina and Ben Gibson, the mother is about the same age as the child, by the way. The mother's about 27 years old. And the baby she just gave birth to, which is not her biological child, but they adopted the embryo and it was implanted in her and came to full term. I mean, that's a miracle in itself that those things can even be done. But how weird is that the mom who gave birth to the baby, they're the same age? Molly's birth is believed to have set a new record, one previously held by her older sister, Emma, for the longest frozen embryo known to have resulted in a birth. Not that matters. They're saying that not that matters to the Gibsons. Tina Gibson, the mom, says, with Emma, we are just so smitten to have a baby. With Molly, we're the same way. It's just kind of funny. Here we go again with another world record. Gibson became pregnant with both Emma and Molly with the help of National Embryo Donation Center, a faith-based nonprofit in Knoxville that stores frozen embryos and vitro fertilization patients have decided not to use, as if they were sort of discarded ornaments or discarded items. We ordered too many of these from the catalog, and we don't need these extra ones. So what are we going to do? Well, we could throw them out. No, don't throw them out because, maybe somebody someday might want them. I know, let's just put them on ice for a while. That's what this is. So families can adopt these unused embryos. I hate the word unused. This is a human life. We don't think in terms of human life as being used or unused, but that's how they're being discussed here. Because I suspect that the people who edit and write articles like this for CNN don't necessarily view unborn human life as human life. So Emma, the Gibsons' older daughter, was born in November 2017 and had set the previous record for the longest frozen embryo known to have resulted in a birth. According to the center, hers was frozen for 24 years. 24 years on ice. Before Emma and then Molly set these records, little was known about the viability of older embryos. And when she found out Emma's embryo had been frozen for so long, Mrs. Gibson, was worried that age would lessen the chances of her becoming pregnant. Now, keep in mind, she didn't become pregnant in the natural way. She became pregnant insofar as this already living child who had been on ice for 27 years was implanted into her uterus, and she was able to bring the baby to full gestation and give birth. Again, a miracle. I mean, we live in amazing times when this kind of thing can happen. Dr. Jeffrey Keenan, the center's president and medical director, assured her that age likely wouldn't affect the outcome. He said in a release, both Emma and Molly's births are proof that embryos shouldn't be discarded because they're quote-unquote old. This definitely reflects on the technology used all those years ago and its ability to preserve the embryos for future use under an indefinite time frame, according to Carol Sommerfelt, the center's lab director and embryologist. About 75% of all donated embryos survive the thawing and transfer process, and between 25 to 30% of all implants are successful. Just think of all of those that are not. 25% don't survive the thawing and transfer process. I mean, had they been allowed to be born naturally, but even that would be an impossibility because they were not conceived naturally. They were conceived in vitro, which is Latin for in glass, in essentially a Frankenstein laboratory experiment. And by the way, my sincere apologies to any of you who are dealing with the reality of in vitro fertilization. I have people in my extended family. Let me be completely frank with you. I have people in my extended family who have children as a result of in vitro fertilization. So I'm not attacking you. Please understand this. I'm not attacking you. I'm standing back and looking at some of the results of this type of technology when it's used in a way that I regard to be contrary to right reason, contrary to divine revelation. And we have this strange situation now where the child is about the same age as the mother for the reasons aforementioned. Questions still remain, CNN says, about the difference age makes in embryo's successful birth, but the center says that Gibson's girls' births are both positive examples of using older embryos. The second embryo the Gibsons adopted wasn't thawed and transferred to Gibson's uterus until February. Gibson said she found out she was pregnant with Molly just days before COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. Anyway, it's just, when I see stories like this, I just have to shake my head and wonder and try to imagine. Can you imagine what it will be like for that little girl? Let's say that you're the dad or the mom, the adoptive dad or mom. Cyrus, I'm going to pull you into this because I want to hear what you have to say on this. So imagine that you and your wife, in the kindness of your hearts, seeking some sort of happy ending for one of these frozen embryos. Let's imagine that you and your wife adopted the embryo. I'm not saying that you ever have or that you ever would, but imagine if you did, okay? How do you have the talk with your daughter and explain to her that she's actually 27 years older than whatever her suspected age is? How do you explain that to your child?
I wouldn't get myself in that situation, and
no, I know you wouldn't.
I doubt that conversation will actually ever happen because they're not going to look at it like that. I don't think they'll look at it like that.
Well, when the girl gets old enough to Google her name,
yeah,
and she reads the CNN article, or sees the news. I'm not here to argue with you, Cyrus. Not at all. It's hard to imagine how strange that will be, and I'm not sure if strange is a big enough word to describe what this is. How do you explain let's say that your daughter is 10 years old. How do you explain to her, well, honey, we never told you this, but you're actually 37 years old. What? But I'm in the fourth grade. Yeah, well, you're the oldest fourth grader in your school. How do you explain that?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. So anyway, we could wallow in that, but let's not do it. But if anything, if nothing else, I should say, maybe this kind of story is a reminder of why certain things that can be done technologically shouldn't be done for reasons like this. Don't you think that everybody has a right to have a normal life, if at all possible? And this kind of thing makes that completely impossible for somebody like this newly born, quote-unquote, little girl.
For more of The Patrick Madrid Show, visit relevantradio.com/Patrick.